Time now for Stormwatch Update, brought to you by BTC.
This is Stormwatch on ZNS News Network. I'm Andrew Knowles. Off the top at this hour, we're looking at live pictures outside of the ZNS studios in Nassau as we are feeling the first effects of Category 2 Hurricane Sandy. Hurricane watches and warnings are up throughout the country. Now joining us live in studio with the latest on this system is Chief Meteorologist Basil Dean. Basil, what can you tell us?
Well, Andrew, there's been no change in the strength since the last 3 hours. It's moving right now between Long Island and Exuma, and those two islands are certainly taking a pounding as we speak. The movement is still towards the north. The good news is it has picked up in forward speed. It's now moving at about 20 miles per hour. But that broad area of showers still battering most of the central and southeast parts of the country, and that will continue throughout tonight. Later on, we'll keep you posted as to those islands that are experiencing hurricane conditions and tropical storm conditions. We'll also give you some cutoff times as to when those conditions will cease.
All right, thank you, Basil. Conditions here are deteriorating with the winds and rain picking up. Our Kendino Knowles takes a look at the conditions here in Nassau just about a half hour ago.
It's about 1:30 in the afternoon on Thursday, and I'm standing on top of our studios on Rusty Bethel Avenue, and already the winds are picking up. The rains are down, which we've seen happening sporadically throughout the day, and of course that is expected to intensify as Sandy moves to and through the Bahamas. Now, forecasters are predicting that Sandy will in fact make landfall here in the Bahamas as a Category 2 hurricane. But forecasters also say if there is any change, the change would possibly be a downgrade to a hurricane, a Category 1 hurricane. Now, we are advising residents to consider the seriousness of this storm and to remain indoors and to follow all the precautionary measures. When the storm leaves, meteorologists say it will be either Friday or Saturday, but until then, again, we're advising all residents to heed all warnings and to take all the precautionary measures.
That was our Kendino Knowles. Also, the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, is active and monitoring the system. Our Alto V's Runnings is there live. We now go to Alto. Alto, what can you tell us?
I'm live here at the Emergency Operations Center at the National Emergency Management Agency's Churchill Building headquarters, which has been open since 12 noon yesterday. A number of government agencies are here manning the phones, ensuring that the relevant and necessary information is in about Hurricane Sandy. Now, there are several people who can only fulfill this task. Joining me now is the current Emergency Operations Center and Defense Force Liaison for the National Emergency Management Agency, Sonia Miller. Good afternoon, Sonia. Tell us exactly what's been happening since you started your shift this morning.
Well, since I've started my shift this morning, we have received numerous calls in from the various island administrators. Basically, what they're reporting is flooding and a lot of power outages. So far, we have received no reports of significant damages to any structure. However, we did receive reports from Inagua where the administrator had reported that the western end of the side of the basin was completely destroyed. We also received some reports from Eleuthera where the administrator there is asking us to warn persons within that community to not attempt to cross the glass window bridge. So basically the reports have been coming in. We're assessing them for the passage of Hurricane Sandy, and we'll be able to go from there.
Now tell us, Sonia, which government agencies are represented here, and how does the information that they receive compile the information needed for the Emergency Operations Center?
Well, we have representations from the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, of course. We have social services. We have the Bahamas Red Cross. We have USAID and OFTA. We have the Royal Bahamas Police Force. We have BC, Batelco, just about every aspect in terms of communications, key government employees, essential emergency services. We have here health, just everybody. We have representation across the board.
Now, the information they get, how quickly do you need it in order to ensure that all the information needed to, say, give to ZNS is compiled properly?
So what we do is regularly we have briefings, and I'll go around to each table and ask them for updates and significant reports. If there's something that requires my attention or some emergency, they would bring that to my attention. So the information flow is very good here. We have direct communication with everybody. They're just a hand touch away and information comes very quickly.
Thanks so much, Sonia. That's Sonia Miller. She's currently the Emergency Operations Center manager for this shift here at the National Emergency Management Agency. Now, as Sonia mentioned, a number of government agencies are represented here today. Among them, the Bahamas Electricity Corporation, which has the task of ensuring that power remains on and power is restored in the event it goes off when Hurricane Sandy does pass any of our islands. And joining me now is Sterling Moss. He's the manager for BEC's distribution. Mr. Moss, tell us exactly, since you've been here at the National Emergency Management Agency's EOC, what have you accomplished?
Yeah, BEC has been monitoring this storm situation all morning. BEC's System Command Center is activated, and our teams are on the ground right now. We're fielding complaints from customers on the island of New Providence. As well as being BEC's representative, we're also liaising with NEMA regarding its family islands. They've noted various family islands that are affected, and so we will make sure that information is transferred to our Nassau office. But obviously our teams and the family islands are doing their jobs.
Mr. Moss, which islands right now BEC paying more attention to as we watch the storm?
Our family island people can communicate. We're just monitoring in a monitoring state right now through NEMA, and then our AGM here in Nassau will be able to give further direction as he sees the storm passes. Obviously, there are concerns about Ragged Island and Long Island, and we know the amount of challenges we have there, but we're still in an assessment mode, waiting for the storm to pass, and our teams are on the ground, just waiting to activate themselves.
Mr. Moss, briefly, what assessment did BEC conduct for New Providence?
On the island of New Providence, we have looked at all of our major feeders. Our transmission systems are intact. We know that they're ready to go. As well as we've said, we're fielding complaints from our customers this morning, determining if there are any pressing issues. We wanted to make sure in particular those areas like the centers where people may have to go all secured. We've determined that, and we've provided assistance this morning. So we're happy with our progress thus far.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moss. That's Sterling Moss. He's BEC's distribution manager, as well as BEC's liaison here at NEMA. Now we're going to have another update for you at 3 o'clock, where we're going to speak with another official here at NEMA, as well as another representative from a government agency. Reporting live from the National Emergency Management Agency's EOC, I'm Altovise Munnings for the ZNS News Network. Back to you, Andrew.
Thanks, Alto. Meantime, the Bahamas Telecommunications Company's command center is operational, and it's already receiving reports of outages. Officials say so far the only reported outages are on Long Island, as customers may be experiencing some cell phone outages due to loss of commercial power. Only the main areas of Deadman's Key, Sims, and Clarencetown are on generator power, while the more remote sites are on battery backup power. Officials say they may lose service after a few hours. Now, over in Acklands, there are reports of some disruptions to landline and cell phone service. That's due to commercial power outages as well. BTC officials are continuing to monitor the situation on both islands very closely. Now, the company's call center is also monitoring the volume and types of calls coming in to determine the areas of concern. Technical teams are stationed at all major sites which service the largest concentration of subscribers through New Providence and the islands. Technicians are also stationed at the Princess Margaret Hospital and police headquarters to monitor communications at those sites. And once the storm has passed, initial assessments will begin on family islands, and depending on the extent of the damage, larger assessment teams will be dispatched to the affected islands. Well, one place that is prone to flooding is being spared so far. The Pinewood area is usually hit hard from the heavy downpour, but about an hour ago that was not the case. Many of the areas that usually flood has had very little flooding. There was some rainfall, but not much flooding, if any. That may not be the case, and we'll stay on the story throughout the day. Well, our news team has been up and about all day bringing you the latest on the storm. We headed to western New Providence, where we found rough seas in the area of Go Slow Bend. Trees were swaying in the wind, and there was lots of rain. We must remind you to stay indoors as conditions are expected to get worse. Janae Noel Ferguson was also out and about an hour ago. NEMA had warned people not to use the Paradise Island Bridge unless they needed to. Here's what she found.
We're here at the Paradise Island Bridge where the weather conditions have already begun to deteriorate. Bridge officials telling our ZNS News team that they're warning persons not to come on the bridge just in case anything happens, but we do still see a lot of traffic happening here on the bridge. Now, we don't know when the police will give an all clear, but we do understand that they want persons indoors, but it doesn't appear as if many persons are taking heed to that warning. Like I said, a lot of traffic still here on Paradise Island Bridge. If you are outdoors, please, we're advising you to stay inside until the police has given the all clear.
That was our Janaea Newell-Ferguson. Hurricane Sandy takes aim at all of our islands. Our Shashina Roll is stationed in Abaco. She filed this report with us just moments ago.
Just to give you an idea of the weather conditions here in Abaco, a few minutes ago my cameraman Philton Lang and I were sitting in our parked car, and it was moving from left to right because the winds are starting to pick up. Right now we are experiencing gusty winds, light to moderate showers, but periodic downpours of rain. So you can hear that the weather conditions are now deteriorating here in Abaco. Joining me now live is the administrator for Central Abaco, that's Mr. Preston Cunningham. First of all, Mr. Cunningham, talk a little bit about what is being done now to prepare for Hurricane Sandy.
Presently, all of our hurricane shelters have been activated. We have had a briefing this morning so that all of the matters that may be outstanding can be dealt with, and we could feel satisfied that all is well.
How many shelters do you have available, and are you seeing any persons now accessing those shelters?
We have two shelters on the mainland and two in the Keys. Initial reports indicate that a few persons have taken advantage already. I imagine by now we will have much more persons in those shelters.
How risky is it for residents to wait for the last minute before going to a shelter?
We could never emphasize sufficiently the necessity for persons to move and move without delay, especially those on the low-lying areas, one. And secondly, those who know full well their homes in which they live are not worthy to stand the storm. If you wait for the last minute, I suppose it is a situation where the rain comes down extra heavily, the wind blows extra strong, so strong that you could hardly see your own hand, then you're stuck, and you could eventually die. So it's extremely important that persons take heed.
And that's the latest coming out of Abaco. I'm Shashina Roll reporting live. Back to you in studio.
Thanks, Shashina. We are looking at conditions live outside of our Rusty Bethel studios. As you can see, they're getting worse. They're beginning to deteriorate. If you're out and about, you should remain indoors. Well, that will do it for this update at 2. Join us again for our next update at 3. ZNS News is providing coverage every hour, so stay tuned for the very latest on Hurricane Sandy. Good afternoon. I'm Andrew Knowles.
This has been a ZNS Storm Watch update brought to you by BTC.